Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Did You Know? This time, our episode is different than before the previous ones. The previous ones, we were talking about a country, its development, its immigrants in Laguna Woods. However, this time we bring to you the story of two people. Obviously, they came here as immigrants from some country, but what we want to do is to share their life stories, which are very unique and most probably very different than yours or mine. Evelyn and Eddie were not allowed to stay where they were if they wanted to be alive. They were not allowed to stay there and continue to live with their families. They came to the United States because they needed to stay alive. And now, let me introduce you to Evelyn and Eddie Hoffman, our neighbors, our friends, and two people that have very important stories to tell, stories about the Holocaust. Eddie, Evelyn, sei begrüßt.
Nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
So let me start with Evelyn. Evelyn, your story is so different than Eddie's. You came here, but you paid a very big price to lose your family, to go through separation from your family. Please tell us, how did that happen, and where did you come from?
Well, I was born in Paris, France, 1937. In 1940, June, the Germans invaded Paris. My father was very active in the underground. He was an official in the Zionist movement. As a matter of fact, I have a picture here. And that's him over here. Anyway, he had to leave. The Nazis found out about him, and he had to leave in a hurry from France. My mother, my two sisters, and I'm the middle child. We had to leave also, but we had to be very careful. We left early in the morning. My mother had sewn many things in our clothes and the seams. We wore several outfits because we weren't coming back. We didn't want the concierge, which was the lady who managed the building, because she was always looking out, and she was known to call the Gestapo or the Germans and let them know what was going on. So we left early in the morning, like we were going on a picnic with a little suitcase. And to make a long story short, we went to a station. We couldn't find a train. We finally found a train. We were in the train for about 2 weeks. We thought we were going to leave right away. My mother ran out of food. Sometimes she left us to look for water, for food. Anyway, after 2 weeks, the train started going south. We went south to a place called Luchon, which was a city close to the Pyrenees Mountains. And we were there for a couple of years. My father was able to come and join us there until it got too hot for him there too. And he went to Barcelona, Spain, and made arrangements for us to be brought over Christmas Eve, as a matter of fact, of 1942. My two sisters and I, under the cover of darkness, crossed over with guides and some other children across the Pyrenees Mountains. We had to be very careful because there were a lot of German posts along the way. There were dogs. Of course, Christmas Eve, it was a little bit lighter. There weren't as many guards, so that's why the patois, who were the guides who lived in the Pyrenees Mountains, that's what they're called, very strong-minded, very patriotic people. And they took us over, were very well paid by my family to take us over. My little sister and I guess they gave us wine or something, but we slept throughout the thing, the trek over. They carried us. My sister Jacqueline, who was 10, she had to walk. It was a hard trip. We were told that if we made any noise, our guide was named Jean, as I think you read that in our book. And we had to do exactly as he said. Well, my sister did. We were carried. I remember my little sister losing a shoe, And I was so worried that her little foot, she was going to freeze. But we did get over there. It took us all night, of course. They told us, don't make a sound, walk in the steps in front of you, be very careful, you could fall over. It was a blizzard, it was so cold. We finally arrived the next morning. They took us to, we recuperated in a small chalet or whatever it was. They took care of us for a couple of days there, made arrangements for us to go down into Spain, and which we did in some kind of a cart type, train type thing. Anyway, we went the next day, we went down, we met our parents in a little town called La Molina, and then we went to Barcelona. From there, we stayed there for a short while until my father was able to make arrangements. I had my mother's brother was an uncle, who's an uncle. He was an uncle who had migrated to United States early on. So he was able to vouch for us financially and whatnot, because that was the only way to get in the United States. No one was allowed unless you had somebody in the United States to vouch for you. So the three of us were sent.
The three girls?
The three girls, my older sister Jacqueline, myself, Evelyn, and my younger sister Paulette. And we went, my parents didn't have visas for themselves, just for the three girls. And the Jewish Family Service, Jewish Joint Distribution Service, Jewish Family Service, they helped us, put tags on us, and we left from Portugal on what I call kind of a cattle boat called the Serra Pinta, which took cargoes of things, so we were on there for about 2 weeks, a few adults on there, and we crossed over to Philadelphia. When we got there, my aunt and uncle, he was my uncle, and his wife didn't want to take care of us. She was scared to death of 3 French children who couldn't speak English. She wasn't in good health. So they took us on to Cleveland, Ohio. There was an orphanage there called Belfair. And we all were there. We stayed there, and they put us in different foster homes to take care of us.
I want you to stop there because I want to continue with your story after I asked Eddie what is his story to compare to yours when you were in Europe.
Okay.
Then I want to get back to you and hear what happened in the United States.
Okay, sure.
So Eddie, now please tell me, I know that you were taken away and put in 4 different camps in your very early youth when you were 13, 14, but tell us a little bit before then, a little bit about your youth. How did you survive at that age, those 4 camps, and what happened to your family?
Well, our town was, in Hungarian, they call it Nagy Szőlős. And then they had a ghetto over there. They created a ghetto for Jewish people until they transferred us to, we didn't know where. We had no idea. And my parents were with me, my 2 brothers, and of course my uncles and aunts and grandmother and all the families. And one day they came and we had to meet at the temple, the big temple, and then they marched us to the wagons, railroad cars, and they put us in the cars, and they told us that they're going to take us to inland, where they have got they need workers to manufacture for the war machine. Well, we had no idea where we're going. As a matter of fact, the rabbi says, don't worry about it. We are good people. Why should they harm us? And everybody listened. Anyway, so we were locked into that wagon, and it took a couple of days we opened up the wagons in Auschwitz, Birkenau. We never heard of it. It was in Poland, and everybody had to come out, and they separated us between women and children, one line, and men who could go to work in another line. And me and one of my brother was with me, and my uncle, and my grandfather. My grandfather was 92 years old. Right away they took him out, and they put her in another line, and we were ended up in Barrack C. It was a kiddie just across the street from the crematorium. Well, what I saw, I didn't like. And I started figuring out what to do.
But the moment you arrived, you were separated from your mother and your sister. Did you ever see them again?
No, I never saw them again. My mother I never saw again, and my little brother, he was 8 years old. Because my brother, I told my brother, hold your mother's hand while you're walking. And that's all I saw. So I ended up with one of my brother and my uncle. We slept on a one bunk in the Barrack C. 9 of us on one bunk sleeping. They issued us 2 blankets for 9 people. And it was very cold. In the middle of the barrack, there was like a chimney built in the middle. And you could sit there during the daytime on top of that. But they never put fire to it. So it wasn't heated at all. And that was, I saw that very bad. So I told my brother first, I said, look, Carl, his name was Carl Hoffman. So you're coming with us, what I do, you should just follow me. But my uncle was about 42 years old. And we talked to my uncle, and he made a decision not to go out, to stay in Auschwitz, and we will hope to get liberated over there. Of course, I knew it was practically impossible. And when I went out in the morning, the SS came and said, anybody who has a Fachmann, that means a trade in his hand, step out. And I told my brother, I said, I want to pull him. No, I stay with my uncle. So
that marked his death.
Huh?
That marked his death. You couldn't save him. He stayed there.
No.
So then I know from reading the book about the 2 of you and the book that your sister wrote. And I want to tell you, my friends, that because we have limited time, if you want to really get to know these two stories, you should buy Ode to Life and Chased by Demons. But let's continue, please, because I want to talk also. You, Eddie, were in 4 different camps, and you were able to leave only when the camps were liberated, right?
Yes.
So now I want to go back to Evelyn and jump into, you finally arrived with a ship to the United States. Your uncle and aunt couldn't take care of you, so you were sent to an orphanage in Cleveland.
Cleveland, Ohio, right.
What happened then?
Well, we stayed there for a while. It was really difficult. My oldest sister, Jacqueline, she was lucky. She found a foster home right away. A lady who wanted to take us too, but she couldn't. She was taking care of her ailing father. So she took Jacqueline, and Jacqueline stayed with her for the duration. She was a wonderful woman. In fact, my sister used to call her Mom. She kind of was like the mother. When we left Portugal, my mother made her promise and swear that she would take care of us, that she would be our mother. And she
how old was
barely
she?
11 years old.
Wow.
It was really hard. She never could forgive them for that. She was very upset about that. But anyway, she did watch over us, and she was always calling the social worker about us. We were sent, she said, I don't want my sisters separated. I want you to find them. So we did. We found foster homes. We were in 2 or 3. A couple of them were not very good. The mother mainly was the one who was, well, she would beat us a lot. And it was difficult because, you know, it was so strange for it was a culture type thing.
And you didn't speak English,
We
right?
didn't speak English. We tried to learn. It took about 6 months for us to learn. We decided, especially when we were in the orphanage, that we would only speak English and not speak French, so that we would, because the kids were so mean, making fun of us, you know how children are. And it took about 6 months, but we learned the language. And we did finally find a foster home that we stayed with for about 3 years. I thought she was a wonderful woman, even though occasionally she beat us too. But to me, that was what happened. You got beaten if you weren't good. I didn't know any other way. Anyway, my parents came in 1948. Took 5 years for some reason to get visas or whatever it was. I even wrote a letter to President Truman. Received a letter back from the secretary, begging them to bring my parents here. Anyway, it was a wonderful thing to be reunited, but that was a whole other story after that, because that was a very difficult reunion, because we had changed, they hadn't. We were 5 years, we were Americanized. We could, Paulette and I could no longer speak French. My sister Jacqueline still spoke French. She remembered it. She wanted to remember it. And she wanted to go on and finish high school. My parents, after a short while, decided we have to go back to France because this is not working here. If we're back in France, everything will be the same. They just, you know, my father used to say, where we live, this is France. This is who you are. And what's outside that doesn't matter. And you'll do what I say. That kind of old Eastern European
So
thinking.
early in your life, you went through culture shock twice. Leaving France, suddenly you're in Spain, suddenly you're in the United States, and then after final reunification with your parents, they want you to go back to the culture that is not your culture any longer. What happened then?
Well, what happened then?
You were brought back to France.
We came back to France. My parents gave us private tutors to learn the language again. I do speak French now, although I've lost a lot of it. I recaptured the language, even the accent. My younger sister, it was more difficult for her for some reason. We went to school there, but we made their life so miserable there. We couldn't adjust, and we wanted to come back. And we just, until my father just gave in, again liquidated everything, and we came back to the United States. This was like in 1951, I believe. And my sister, in the meantime, older sister, Jacqueline, had finished school. She had a boyfriend, and she wanted to get married. She got married. She did go back to France for a short while. He sent her to, she was very talented. She went to design school in Paris. My father thought that she was going to work with him. He had an établissement de cuir, a leather, wholesale leather and raincoats and things like that, that he made in where we lived. He was a businessman. And anyway, after that, she went back to the United States to get married. So shortly after that, we also went back to the United States. When we came back, it was really, really hard for them because my father, he was going broke, going back and forth. My mother had a nervous breakdown, and she was in a institution for a short while to recoup. That was very, very hard times.
When one thinks of the Holocaust, one thinks of the camps, and one doesn't think about family breaking and the culture shock and saving the children or yourself.
We did videos for the Shoah Foundation by Steven Spielberg. We both did videos. And I remember at the end they asked me, well, how do you feel now? Everything's okay? And I said, the war never ended, because it's an ongoing, your relationship with your children, you think differently, and you import your own feelings and how you feel toward them, and it's just something that it's there, and you just never forget. It's really hard.
And Eddie, when you were liberated from the whole situation in the 4 concentration camps, where did you go from there?
I got liberated in Ebensee, Austria. I ended up over there after about 5 or 6 camps. And it was a great relief. It was the Patton, General Patton, American general, who liberated us. And they separated us from different countries. All the people in the camp itself had to reorganize, and Czechs and the Hungarians and the Polish and so all the people. And I was between the Czech group because my intentions were I wanted to go back home to see if anybody survived.
Did you find anyone?
Yes, I found my father's sister, and I had maybe about 6 cousins I found, but not my not my brother, not my father. My mother was killed the same. I knew she was killed because of the 8-year-old boy. We saw what's going on over there. And so I did go back home to my town. When I got off the train, who was coming along over there? It was the mayor of the town. And right away he recognized me because he was a very good friend of my father's. And he saw me, he said, "You come with me." He was married, but he had a big house, and he said, "You're going to stay with us." And he insisted I stay with the mayor of the town. And right away he managed to put me at work. He put me in charge of a supermarket. But by mistake, I took the wrong train.
And you went to?
Prague.
Okay. And because we have limited time, from Prague you went to England. From England you came to the United States. And in the United States, actually to get your citizenship, you enrolled in the army and you were sent to Japan. So you're in Japan. What happened there?
I became a Korean veteran and Japan. I was stationed in Japan. I liked the army. It wasn't bad. And a matter of fact, when I had basic training in the military, the officer put me down that I'm such a good baker that they made me the company baker when I was in basic training. And
when exactly did you meet Evelyn? How did it happen?
By accident.
In Cleveland?
In Cleveland, Ohio.
It was a blind date.
Oh, it was a blind date.
Yeah.
And I hate to rush you because we could sit here for 5 hours, but how many years have you been married?
My wife is married 65 years.
And you?
She claims I was there, but I can't remember.
And you have 4 children?
We have 4, 2 boys and 2 girls.
Yeah.
He really wanted 4 kids because there were 4 of them.
Oh.
And he was the only survivor.
Yeah.
So I think he planned it.
When I was reading the 2 books about you, I was really taken where you say that you don't hate those that crushed your lives, that you don't have space for hatred.
No, because we had speeches at middle school, high school, and they always ask, do you hate them? Well, I came to the decision that if you hate somebody, they don't care if I hate them or not. My own self, is hurting me more than I hate somebody else.
Right.
And I always answered, no, I don't hate them.
Well, let me tell you, you're so special, the 2 of you. What you went through and what you're doing and still do today in this community and for the children, teaching them so that we don't forget.
Yeah.
I thank you so, so, so much. You're
very
wonderful.
Welcome. Oh, by the way, if you want the book, it's Ode to Life, The Love Story. You won't find it under just Ode to Life. The Love Story by Jacqueline Grossman.
This is a story that is still with us. A story that hopefully we will never forget. A story that hopefully has taught us something. I thank you very much for watching Did You Know? And I thank so much Evelyn and Eddie for sharing such hard lives with us. Thank you so much for everything you do.
I thank you.
See you soon, and I love you.